Tumelo Madlala, the state's third witness in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, has pointed out accused number 2, Bongani Ntanzi, as one of the intruders in the Khumalo home at Vosloorus, where Senzo Meyiwa was shot. Now, Madlala says Ntanzi was the one whom Senzo pinned to the wall in the kitchen. Madlala, one of Meyiwa's friends, was among the people who were in the Khumalo home when alleged robbers shot and killed the star goalkeeper in 2014 in Vosloorus. Now, for the very latest, now on the Meyiwa murder trial, we're now joined by our reporter Chriselda Lewis, who's been tracking this story. Chriselda, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Another day of explosive testimony by Madlala. Just give us some pointers in terms of what he has described in court today.
Well, Unati, from very early on this morning, well, in fact, when we adjourned yesterday, there'd been an expectation on what the court would say with regard to what the state had wanted was for Madlala to point out who he said he believed was inside the house amongst the 5 men who are currently standing trial at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed. So what we saw today was Bongani Ntanzi, who was accused number 2, who was pointed out by Madlala and basically says that he is the person that Senzo Meyiwa was wrestling with. This was before he heard the gunshot go off. I can certainly tell you in terms of what we saw straight after that was a bit of a chuckle coming from the side where the accused had been sitting. That certainly did raise eyebrows, and looking at the reaction from the Meyiwa family, looking surprised, looking confused, if I may. We didn't get a chance to speak to them, but this is the first time that we're hearing from any one of the witnesses that has taken the stand. This is, of course, the third one and the first that was inside the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed. So Madlala basically says this is the man that was having a tussle with Senzo Meyiwa. It was the second person you would recall. The first person had been described as carrying a firearm and demanding cell phones. And the second intruder that Madlala had described was when he had got up from the couch after Longwe Twala had pushed the first intruder. And when he tried to run towards the kitchen, this is where he saw Senzo Meyiwa pin this person against the wall, and now today he's pointed that person out as accused number 2, Bongani Ntanzi.
Now, of course, also let's just talk about, just a line of questioning from the defense. We heard, of course, Madlala being questioned around the fact, was he paid to come and testify today?
Well, that's right, Unati. That's one of the issues that were raised in cross-examination by Titi Tabane, who is the legal representative for accused 1 to 4. He accused Madlala of being coached before coming to testify in this court. He also says that Madlala was paid for the Netflix documentary you would recall that he participated in. Well, that documentary, you would recall, was aired just days before the start of this trial. He didn't deny it. He says he was paid for that Netflix documentary to participate in it because he believed that it was his time, and Netflix basically, he says, had asked him for photos of Meyiwa, and he gave them photos from his phone. So these would be personal photographs that he gave Netflix, and he says indeed he was paid for that. And also what we saw coming through there, Unati, which was also quite a crucial part, towards after the lunch break, after Titi Tabane had continued with his cross-examination, he contends, and their version, he says, basically accusing Madlala of concealing everything that happened on that day. He says, in fact, he said he put it to him that how all of this led to Senzo Meyiwa being shot was that Longwe Twala, who is the son of Chico Selo Twala, had walked into the house on that day upset, and at some point he'd taken out a firearm, and there had been a tussle between Senzo Meyiwa and Longwe Twala, and Senzo Meyiwa had basically wrestled this firearm away from Longwe Twala and gave it to Kelly Khumalo, and saying it was then that a shot went off, so which would mean that the defense is implying that Senzo Meyiwa was mistakenly shot by Kelly Khumalo. So he says when Longwe came in the house, there was an argument and commotion. He pulled out a firearm. Madlala responded by saying that those are lies. That did not happen. He maintains that there were intruders that came inside the house. He was also under cross-examination questioned about that, and the defense for accused 1 to 4 says there was simply no intruders. What happened there was a commotion that had taken place. Longwe Twala taking out a firearm, Senzo Meyiwa wrestling for that firearm with Longwe Twala, managing to get it away from him, giving it to Kelly Khumalo, and basically saying that that is when the shot had mistakenly gone off. Other details that also emerged inside this court is that defense for accused 1 to 4 also says that Senzo Meyiwa, a witness will come and testify that Senzo Meyiwa had a relationship, a sexual relationship with Kelly Khumalo and her sister Zandi Khumalo. And there were a lot of questions about whether Madlala had known that Zandi was staying with Kelly Khumalo and Senzo Meyiwa. He says he doesn't know about that. The last time when he had visited Senzo Meyiwa, he had slept in a second bedroom, so which means that this house or apartment where they stayed was a 2-bedroom, and he says he knows nothing about that. So, accusations about coaching, about lying, about being paid to come to this court to testify on the basis that he was paid for, to participate in that Netflix documentary which was aired just days before the Senzo Meyiwa trial had started. Also questions about going back to what you said earlier, Unati, about him pointing out to accused number 2, Ntanzi, saying that he was the man that wrestled with Senzo Meyiwa. You would recall that no official identity parade was done that Madlala had participated in, which involved the 5 accused inside this court. So the defense is basically saying, how could you point out accused number 2, yet in the first instance, when you participated in an identity parade, it did not include these 5 men who are in the dock. It had included other persons, of which Madlala has already told this court he couldn't identify anyone in that identity parade, and he also participated in an identikit. That's the drawing up of that sketch. And you would recall at that time Zamaruhle Mbata was the person who was the suspect in this matter. The charges had been dropped against him a short while later, and that sketch seems to be the one that was put up inside court. So questions raised about or accusations that Madlala is lying and that he's basically putting together a version that would suit all of the occupants in the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed.
Chriselda, thank you so much for that update. That's where we leave it for now. Of course, the trial does continue tomorrow.